going to be doing a little bit, hopefully this is short, they tend to not be, combination of a few things. For some of you who have been following me a little more closely, you may remember that I've been enrolled in a human design course that is incredible, and I've been well into beta testing some readings on my close network of friends, and it's going really well. And I was going to post about this, but I figure I'll just incorporate this into this video. But on the website symphonic.alignment.com, which is kind of still in its editing phase, I just kind of pop in there whenever I have time, so sorry if there's any issues with it. Let me know if you notice anything. But you can actually start booking these kind of launch promotional pricing sessions with me starting for September 1st. So it's available for booking now, but the earliest times are starting September 1st. And once September 1st happens, the promotional pricing is going to increase. So by the end of the year, I intend at being full retail, which is probably going to run somewhere between $150 to $200 a session. Of course, I always have some level of sliding scale or financial support for folks who are not as resourced, so that you're not necessarily locked out of having access to things that can be, in my opinion, really helpful and really life-changing in whatever it is that you're doing. And so you can go ahead and head to the website if that's something you want to check out. And I also wanted to do a quick reminder that if you're in Washington State, we have our primary election on August 5th, so it's coming up really soon. I was really hoping to have done a conversation with a few folks that I really want to highlight, and that I've either met personally or I just know them to be very involved with the community or having life experiences that are less represented within these really important positions. So even though my particular ballot, I think, only has like 4 commissioner positions that I'm going to be voting for, it's really, even though I'm only voting for 4 different people or 4 different positions, it's so important, because when you think of things from the grand scheme of things, a lot of folks start at these more local positions, and then they gain experience, they gain connections, they get a little bit more exposure within their communities, and a lot of times they eventually kind of work up the so-called ladder. And so folks that we start electing in on the local levels or these so-called smaller positions, they do tend to be a part of that ladder. And so I just really want to emphasize how important these non-presidential elections really are for the long term. And we're seeing it right now, the impacts of folks not paying attention. And unfortunately, it took us being in a position like we are in now that it's really starting to show itself. I, of course, always like to connect things astrologically, intuitively, and for those of you who are not so-called believers in this, like, no problem. It doesn't matter to me whether or not you believe in it. But for those who do, we are in the age of Aquarius. And so this is literally a time of things coming to light. Pluto specifically being in Aquarius, it's going to be bringing up a lot of shadows. It's going to be digging things up from beneath the surface, and we've been seeing this for a while now, like full blown into the light being uncovered of what was just kind of hidden before, and now we're kind of seeing the light. So now is actually an opportunity to see what is really going on, because we can't really, I mean, if you were to even just take like a doctor of any type or trying to diagnose something, you have to get to the root, and we can't really fix the issue or come up with ways to resolve it or solutions moving forward if we don't really know what that root is. So even though I never want to say that I believe the things that are happening to our community members and families being ripped apart, unfortunately, people across the globe being treated as less than human, being starved, I guess the popular term that I've been hearing a lot is using unaliving. And so, there's just a lot of forces and powers that are coming out and showing themselves and revealing themselves for who they are, taking the masks off. Well, some of them are. We know very well who's not taking the masks off, but I digress. And so this is, at the same time, an opportunity to really start thinking about what needs to be done in order to start turning the tides. And voting is one of them. If you have the ability to vote, if you have been given that ability, and when I say that, there's always a caveat of having access and accessibility to actually complete the action of voting. This is a time of opportunity. And so this is where I kind of needed to take some time away for processing, for understanding how I felt about things and how I wanted to proceed forward. And I think that, once we access these emotions of anger, sadness, fear, and all of these things that have just been laying dormant within us, at some point we have to be able to transmute that energy into actions, into healing, into, what comes next, right? We can have our anger and we can experience our emotions and our frustrations, but at some point it then just becomes, damage to ourselves. And when we start to look at, and I'm not a mental health professional by any means, but from my perspective, I feel like from a behavior standpoint, from my personal understanding of certain characteristics of the folks that are in power, we know that at some point our own emotions just begin to harm ourselves and really have no impact on these other folks. And if anything, they thrive on it and they feed on it. And so our ability to heal, in my opinion, and being able to express those emotions, acknowledge them, nurture them, and heal them, then transmute and transform them into something positive, something action-oriented, something tangible, something aligned is so important, and I believe is one of our greatest hidden weapons and one of the things that we have all full control over, right? There are some things in this world that we can't necessarily control, and they're forces beyond us, including, my heart goes out to all of the victims of, the war crimes and natural disasters. There was just another major one, unfortunate mass shootings and, mental health concerns or lack of helpful support that helps under-resourced folks, those who suffer because of stigma and all of that. My heart goes out to all of these victims and all of the survivors as well of these abuses in whatever form that they are. So I do hope I'm pronouncing all of your names properly, but I am looking at my voters pamphlet so I don't get any of your positions wrong, but I wanted to highlight and offer my endorsements for what it's worth and encourage you to go look at their websites, read carefully your voter pamphlet, and get a feel for, who they are directly and not from biased sources of media, even though technically you can say that I'm being biased because I do know two of them, but they all started off professionally. So, Maricruz Marmar Castro, running for Charter Review Commission, Council District 4, Position 1. Amazing human being, does so much for the community in terms of the Asian or AA-NHPI communities, for mental health and reducing the stigma, as well as offering services for that, or advocating for services, being very involved in supporting our youth and helping with youth programming. She has a ton of experience just within the community, as well as some of these positions. If you look at her, some of her volunteer roles or committee roles. Also a very kind, empathetic person, and I would have no doubt that she would be willing to listen to community and really take concerns to heart and incorporate that into her work. So absolutely want to highlight Marmar. Then we have, I also hope I'm saying your name correctly, Troy Sarad, going for Charter Review Commission, Council District 5, Position 2. Also somebody that I got to know personally, starting professionally, and also another compassionate, amazing human. I have no doubt that he would be willing to listen to community members and also take what they have to say to heart, and a lot of great experience, and also serves several different diverse communities as well, including veterans and the LGBT community, and just, yes, excellent human being. Again, somebody that I would absolutely love to highlight here. Third, I do not know him personally, but I did learn about him prior to even knowing that he was running. So this is Salong Chun, running for Tacoma Council District number 4. Also has a lot of experience, also does a lot of work within the community already, and representing underrepresented communities as well as being a part of the community that he intends to serve. And I don't actually know if the other two people, so just like Marmar, I believe Silong grew up in the area that he intends to serve, whereas the other two running, I don't believe either of them were born, and from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like Sandesh was born in the Tacoma area. I think that it said that. And I also had read that I thought he was not going to be running again after his term was up, but it looks like he changed his mind. And then as far as Israel, I'm just a little bit personally skeptical with the background in these large corporations that are not known for having the community or the public's best interests at heart. And so I'm not saying that he wouldn't do a good job, but I definitely feel like folks who are really tuned into the needs of the communities, especially those that are the most underrepresented or lack of voice. Of course, that's what I'm going to value, and you may have different values, but that's why I would like to endorse Silong as well. And then one other person I wanted to just give a mention to, because I also know, I believe just like Troy, Brian Yamby for Pierce County Council District number 5 is endorsed by our current executive and former council member. And from what I believe I've seen on social media, I believe that our current our current county executive, Ryan Mello, who is an amazing human, and I'm so glad that you are our executive. Thank you so much for all that you do. I believe is endorsing Brian Yamby and likely Troy as well, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. But again, all of these are just some of my thoughts and my perspectives, especially if you haven't had the time to look up some of these folks and you are looking for some people to maybe look into with some insights or direction into who may be more willing to listen to community and or understand the needs of the community because they are so deeply within community. And so far, at least the first three people, I believe them to be very community oriented. I believe that they would listen to community and advocate and fight for communities that have been highly targeted, especially during these times. And so that would be immigrant communities, the Asian AANHPI communities, the LGBT and trans communities. So I think those things are so important. And again, I want to just remind you of that kind of ladder effect that tends to happen. And at some point, I wouldn't be surprised that the folks that get these local positions here in Washington state, as well as across the nation, have a high chance at some point of running for other positions and kind of eventually creeping up that ladder. And to me, it only makes sense that, you know, you would kind of start in these kind of smaller area locations, and then you start, as you do good work, hopefully, and not being manipulated by, you know, the media and outside dollars. We would hope that by doing a good job, the communities will recognize that and feel represented by them so that they can then go for positions that kind of increase in their potential power and influence. So that is all I have. And obviously, before I record this, I'm going to double check that none of the laws changed and that it is totally okay. I think that as long as I'm not showing my ballot, we should be good. But as of the presidential election in 2024, it was not illegal in the state of Washington to show our ballots or who we were voting for. But just for the purposes of this video here, I'm just going to call this an endorsement for those three. And yeah, I hope you'll do your research and look into them, and I hope that you get the sense of everything that I said from their social media, from their campaign websites, and if you ever get a chance to meet any of them in person. So thank you, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.